Good morning, guys. Leslie at Inskeep Acres. Well, it looks like our weather's finally starting to make a turn for the better. Fingers crossed. It's almost 50 degrees already this morning, and looks like maybe into the mid-60s today, and then 70s, and about the 80s by the end of the week. So here's to hoping it stays that way. And go out, milk goats. Jason took our shelter off the trailer. Give you just a quick walk around on it. I think that'll give them quite a bit more shelter space. So, but anyway, we're going to milk goats, do all of our morning chores. Good example of a death nap. She's out like a light. Anyway, finished chores, get all that stuff done, and then since the weather's looking up, we had gotten some meat birds at the farm store over the weekend. So we're gonna go ahead and get them moved out to the brooder. So we'll show you that setup and getting them moved out there. Well, morning chores are done. Everybody's content. So I'm gonna take all my stuff in, and then we will work on getting those chicks moved out to the brooder. I'll show you the brooder first and just kind of explain the setup on it. And then we'll get everything finished and get them moved into it. Okay, this is the chick brooder that I built last year. We just have it sitting outside of our chicken coop. I built it on a pallet so that I could move it pretty much wherever I wanted, and this is where we had set it last year, and it just never moved. This window, there's one on each end, so we can open and close that to get some ventilation and fresh air. I haven't figured out, I think I want to just put a board on here that I could hinge to kind of latch it closed, but both ends have windows that we can open like that. They are covered with hardware cloth on the inside, so nothing can get in there. And then one side of the roof hinges, and let me see if I can reach my prop board. So this side opens up, and then I just use this board 2x4 to prop it open. It does, this frame comes down and sits kind of right along this edge, so they can get some ventilation even if the windows are not open, up through the bottom side of here and in. And then the roof peak just has a piece of flexible weatherproof fabric, so they can still get ventilation out the peak. And then this runs up here so that we can plug the extension cord in to have heat for their brooder plates. This is a larger one that we have. They currently have a smaller one inside with them, and I think this one does up to 30 chicks, but I'll have to see. If they look like they're needing more than that, then I will put the smaller one in here as well. This is just a grate to keep kind of the water mess from being kind of spread everywhere. And then we'll put a feeder on top of here just to keep it up out of the shavings. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug that in, get that warming. We are, I think it said we're at like 60 degrees already, so I'm gonna run my extension cord. I run kind of right here out of the peak over to the chicken coop and get this warming. I'm gonna go in and get chicks together and find a larger feeder for them. The one that they have inside now is really small. It's not big enough for all of them, but I brought all the chicks out. I just put them in the boxes that we brought them home in. And see if I can get you guys set up there. So we had 3 layer chicks that someone had given us. So there's one. I'm gonna have to move some of this stuff. Too short, I couldn't lean down in here. And then these 2. Leah, get. The dogs are all interested in seeing what we have. So I did wash out the water and refill it. And then we have 20 Cornish cross, which are meat birds. They're partially feathered. We got them today, probably about 4 days ago. Now, if these were ones that I just got in the mail, they would be a little bit younger, and I would take them and dip their beak in the water. But because they're a little bit older, they already know what the water is. And we have this little, I don't know, girl, who's just kind of been being walked on a little bit. So I'll have to keep an eye on this one. Unfortunately, more than likely it's not going to make it. I will just make sure several times a day that I try to put it up here by the water, or make sure that it has water and can get to the food. Hopefully it'll get a little more strength. But just over the last few days, it hasn't been doing that great. Well, it's interested in some food and water, so that's a plus. So I built this brooder just kind of on a smaller scale from, I believe it's it's Joel Salatin's brooder, but it was in Justin Rhodes' book. I'll have to double check the book. I don't remember if it's the two of them together in the book or if it's Justin's book, but he shares Joel Salatin's, some of his designs. So they were thirsty. But you've seen the size of them now, so I'll show you later on as they grow. We'll compare their size. So there's their size in my hand. They're probably, whoa, at least a week old, I'd say. Probably between a week and 2 weeks old. We'll have several more batches of meat birds this year. I have ordered online to have them delivered. I think it's mid-May was the first set, but they had these at the store and they were cheaper than what I ordered online, so I might as well as throw an extra batch in there. So you guys can follow them growing. Once they're feathered and large enough, we'll put them out in the chicken tractors that you guys have seen out in the hayfield. And we move them around every day. And then about 8 weeks from now, well, they're older than just hatching, so probably about 6-7 weeks from now, we will be processing them for the freezer. So I just put the lid down on that. When it gets really hot in the summer, I have a piece of an old dog kennel that I'll leave this propped up, and then I'll put that over just to prevent cats or anything else from getting to the chicks. More than likely this batch won't ever have that, but I'm going to leave that window open just for a little bit of ventilation. It'll get closed at night. This is one of our chicken tractors that I tried with nesting boxes. It had a tarp over it, and between the weather and Abel, they ate that and destroyed it. So I don't know if I'm going to try to rebuild that more in like an A-frame with tin, or if we're just going to go ahead and put another tarp on it and just continue to use it. I'd like to maybe do some turkeys or something in it. I might just take the nesting boxes out, or I may use it to try to move some of my new egg layers around. But we'll see. Okay, I think we're going to try to do a little bit of garden cleanup today. Whew, it's a little bit warmer out here than I was thinking. But we're just going to try to get some of this stuff cleaned up into a pile, the stuff that we don't want in the garden. I'm going to put down some stuff to try to kill some of the grass in between. And around, I have to find some rocks or something to kind of hold this down, but once we get rid of the grass from in between, then I can take some of these boards off and start making this one long continuous bed like our new garden out there. I'll take you out and kind of show you that. It's essentially a raised bed. It's, I don't know, probably at least a foot deep, but it doesn't have the boards around it. These boards have been here for many years and they are all kind of starting to rot. I didn't want treated lumber for my garden beds, but I also wasn't going to spend the money on cedar. So we knew this was kind of a temporary kind of garden space, but I think making it one big bed with kind of a walkway around the outside that I'll put landscape cloth on. Maybe I'll just mulch it, I don't know, I'm not really sure yet, but and then a walkway down the middle should serve us a little bit better, a little more growing space. I don't really like the idea of having to kind of walk between them, but I can always make walkways on certain sections, make larger and smaller sections. I think it'll be better, a little more efficient for growing, so we'll see how it goes. Now I just have to figure out a way to keep the cats out of my beds. I just come in and they had some of my onion bulbs dug up. I think I'm just going to use some T-posts to try to get this weighed down just so it stays long enough to kill some of the grass in between. Look out, Joe. Get, Joe. I like to use T-posts to stake my tomatoes. So I keep, ouch, some T-posts just for garden use in the garden. Oh. What are you doing? Apparently the cat, Ricardo, wants to... No, I know I said cat, Joe. You don't need to get him. He was trying to hide in my plastic. Oh, these are covered in ants. Yay. Neighbors' turkeys are telling me all about it. Oh, we're gonna have some mad ants. They must have been nesting in my plastic because I just messed up all of their eggs. Joseph, get off of there. Make sure they're not climbing up my legs. I don't mind bugs, but I really am not a very big fan of ants. Last fall, when we were done with the garden, I took some of our meat birds. It was our last batch of meat birds that we did, and put them out here in part of the garden, and I kind of fed them up in the raised beds. So they got up there and ate and scratched, and that was kind of where they pooped and did their thing. The little boy goats, I fenced them. They're on the other side eating grass. Let's go down to the other end and get more T-posts. Joey, get. And I think one more. There's the bucklings, just on the other side of the garden fence. Their pen is right there, and I just opened it up with a little bit of a fence so that they could get out here. Oh, don't stand under me, Joe. So that should work just to kind of kill the grass in between each of these. I need to go through and pull all the weeds out of these, and then we'll pull the wood frames off and just kind of fill it this way and in between once the grass dies. Got quite a bit of asparagus starting to come up here, so I need to come through and harvest some of that. Keep an eye on our strawberries. Probably gonna hook the hose up and come and water the strawberries and the asparagus. Oh, there's one coming up. There's another pretty good sized one. This one must have had a strawberry planted right on top of it, because it's coming out of the strawberry plant. Need to get this stuff mulched. Something's been in here knocking stuff over, probably the cats. I gotta figure out a way to keep the cats out of here. I need to either bring in some mulch, or I think I'm going to rake up all of the wasted hay in the goat pens. There's another little asparagus coming up, and use that as mulch on the asparagus and strawberries. This half doesn't have anything in it, but this half has 11 rows of onions kind of along here. And let's see, I don't know if you guys can, how well you can see that. There's onions starting to sprout. There's several of them in here. This one looks like it's been partially dug up. The cats. So, ideas to keep the cats out of my garden, let me know. It has cattle panels with chicken wire pretty much all the way around, but there's another onion. So they're starting to come up, but the cats find little spots to sneak in, like by the gate and things like that. Here's some volunteer asparagus. Seeds must have blown in from over there. I know there's several spots with that. This all has to be cleaned out. There's a lot of work to do to get this. Well, it was late in the day and my microphone must have died on me, but I was just saying it was going to be a lot of work to get all this cleaned out. Back to usable garden. I had gotten behind and didn't pull garlic out of this bed last, I don't know, summer, fall. And apparently I had missed some because the whole heads were sprouting there. This is my oregano that's growing and kind of taking over every year. More and more space needs to be cleaned up. And then I didn't think it would make it through the winter, but I do have a sage plant here, and it looks like it needs to be kind of propped up or needs a little bit of assistance. It's growing very well, but it's laid way over. I don't know if I can prop it up with like a tomato cage, or maybe it'll just be fine the way it is. But we had, a couple of years ago, we had a derecho come through, and with the high winds, it blew these arches, which are just cattle panels, bent, kind of, not bent, I guess, arched over, and they're stapled to the raised bed boards. And when the wind blew through so hard, it blew the cattle panels and bent them, and as it did that, it pulled some of the screws out, or kind of stripped the holes, and has made the raised beds kind of deteriorate a little bit faster. I did not plant in some of these last year just because they were falling apart so bad. They just kind of, some of the dirt was coming out, and so these cattle panels were really kind of mangled. That one has almost a 90-degree bend in it. And so I've just used them the best I could up to this point, but I think this year I finally need to do something about it, just because the beds are getting to the point where they're not very usable. Hence the reason I'm looking at doing the one long raised bed. And then these are our raspberries. Looks like they need to be trimmed back a little bit, and then there's some old canes from last year that I need to go in and cut out. Last fall just seemed to kind of get away from me, and I didn't get everything done. I guess that kind of happens every year, but The raspberries are kind of taking over. We thought putting them in a raised bed would kind of keep them in, but they actually grow out and coming up in the walkways and everything. This is that new garden bed area we did last year. I had more strips of landscape fabric on it, but because it's so soft, when I stapled it in, the wind, when it kicked up, they weren't really tight into the ground because it was soft, and picked them up, kind of pulled the staples out of the ground. So I need to get those strips out of the shed, and then I want to kill off kind of the grass and weeds growing in, and we're going to try to extend the bed out this year to kind of give a little more growing space in that raised area. Try to take it all the way over to where the fence will be. In these self-wicking tubs, there's some cranberries, elderberries, blueberries. Some of my blueberries look like they did okay over winter. Some of them look like they may not have made it. And then up in this kind of little raised bed area by the sunroom, we have rhubarb. This one plant has been doing really well. There's a small one there that I planted last year, and then I had two others that don't look like they've made it. And then these are the stalks from the sunflowers. I need to come through and cut those off down at the ground. But the chickens, when we let them out, they get up here and scratch and dust bathe in it and kind of make a mess. So I need to get some mulch in there after I get these weeds pulled. This is horseradish. I actually had planted in one of those green tubs, and my mistake, it had a crack in the bottom of it. So the roots grew down through the crack and into this bed, and so it's just kind of doing its own thing there. This is a view of the garden from the other end. We need to put a fence along that property line across the front here over to the house with a gate, and then back connecting to the current fence. This area all needs to be, have the weeds killed, try to cover it and kill those off before we add more dirt. Hopefully I have enough back in my compost manure piles to be able to come up and fill this. There's garlic planted in these. I haven't really seen much garlic coming up, but there's a few weeds coming. Normally I've always planted garlic in our raised beds in the garden, and it's done well. I've never really had it in these type of raised beds. They're a little bit deeper, but they may have froze more than our normal beds do over winter, so hopefully the garlic comes up. Well, that's it, guys. Have a good day. See ya on the next one.